Welcome. I would like to welcome you to another episode of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And if you would do me a favor, please subscribe to whoever you're listening. Please subscribe to whoever you're watching. It definitely means a lot to me. Oh, before we start, man, shouts out to my man, Drew. Now, this is pretty much for the YouTube audience, I guess. But my man, Drew, I went to Voorhees College in Denmark, South Carolina. I graduated from Voorhees College. I played basketball for 3 years in Voorhees College, or at Voorhees College. And my man Drew, who's also a graduate of Voorhees College, took it upon himself to make a whole bunch of Voorhees apparel, man. And that joint looks nice, man. I appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Definitely, I put the link in the description below for if you want to support. I mean, you know, man, he's doing big things, man. So I appreciate it. But where we'll start is actually in college. And of course, the biggest thing at this point is March Madness. And March Madness has been crazy. First and foremost, everyone knows that I'm a North Carolina fan. Everybody knows this. So I'm going, there's going to be a little bit of a, I guess you can say, gloat for this episode, seeing as though North Carolina finds themselves as one of the 4 teams in the Final Four. Before though, I shouts out to St. Peter's. St. Peter's, small school in Jersey, did something that never been done, getting a 15 seed to the Elite Eight. And well deserved, man. They did their thing, man. They beat. It ain't like they beat scrubs. I mean, you make it to Elite Eight and you're a 15 seed. That means you had to beat some people. They beat Kentucky. They beat Purdue. They beat Murray State. That was on fire this year. They did their thing. They just ran into a buzzsaw that is North Carolina. But shouts out to St. Peter's, man. They definitely deserve their shout out. They definitely deserve to make it. Seeding is important, clearly, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes you click at the right time. Sometimes just because you're a 15 seed, just because you're an 8 seed, just because you're any type of seed, doesn't mean it can't be beat. I mean, look a couple years ago when UMBC beat a Virginia. You know what I'm saying? A 16 seed beat a 1 seed. First and only time in NCAA history. So it doesn't. Seeding really doesn't matter. You're in the tournament at this point. It's a ball out. So shouts out to St. Peter's. But let's talk about the Final Four. The 4 teams that we have in the Final Four is Duke, North Carolina, which is actually the first time in both programs' history that they have seen each other in the tournament. And then on the other side, you have Villanova and Kansas. So I'm going to break down each team, how they got here, predictions, this, that, and the third. Let's start with Duke. As we know, this has been Coach K's, farewell tour. This is his last season coaching, and Duke came into the tournament with a lot to prove. Clearly, as a player, as an organization, you don't want arguably the greatest college head coach of all time to go out with a loss, and they've been on a run, man. Duke has one thing that we questioned about Duke was, can they elevate to to a championship level? You have great players. You have Banchero, you have Wendell Moore, you have some really good players, but can they elevate their play to a championship level? Their defense, they're a really good defensive team. The only problem is there are times when their defense wanes. There are times when their offense wanes. They're not the best offensive team, but they've played well. I mean, they've beat everyone they had to beat. They beat Texas Tech they beat Michigan State. They've beat some really tough teams. And Duke right now was playing, in my opinion, they're probably playing the first or second best as far as overall. Now, I'm not saying they are the first or second best. What I'm saying is, as far as momentum, they're probably playing either the best basketball they played or the second best that's remaining. But Duke, the way that they're playing, I can very much, I can see them winning it all. I can see them losing against North Carolina. That's how even this matchup, in my opinion, is. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm a North Carolina fan. I'm saying that because when you look at almost every win that Duke has had, every important win, because CSU, Fulton, that's, But when Michigan State, they won that because it was the Michigan State game was a slog throughout the whole thing. Like, neither team was really good offensively. It was Duke's defense kind of boggled down and got them to the win. Arkansas, pretty much the same thing. Their offense kind of took off, and it was just like, okay, well, I mean, dang, Arkansas. So Duke can beat you in a myriad of ways. It's just, I don't think that they've played a team. They haven't played a team that's been able to capitalize on their lows. Meaning, Michigan State had a great opportunity to win that game. It's just their they left their offense in what the round of 32. Like, it was bad. Or they left their offense in the round of 64, bro. It was bad. Arkansas couldn't shoot to save their life. So, Duke made it to the Final Four, and they're playing like the squad that a lot of people thought could win it all coming into the season. And you get to North Carolina. Coach Hubert Davis' first year as the head coach, following the historic tenure of Roy Williams. And in my opinion, North Carolina is playing the best basketball. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a North Carolina fan, but when you look at it, they have been dominant outside of the second half against Baylor, which, by the way, if you look, Baylor they were beating Baylor by like 25, and then, Brady Manick gets ejected. Then you lose Caleb Love. He fouls out. So at that point, you're losing a person that's pretty much well on his way to 40 points because Brady Manick was going crazy. You lose your second ball handler and pretty much your best shot creator in Caleb Love. So it's like it was just a recipe for disaster. But North Carolina was able to come through against Baylor. So, like I said, North Carolina, in my opinion, is playing the best basketball. They were destroying Baylor, which was the number 1 seed in the East region. They beat UCLA. When UCLA was winning majority of the game, it was just until the end, and that's the game where Caleb Love went crazy. Caleb Love had like 3 points at half and then finished the game with 30. So I just feel when you have Armando Bacot, who tied Tim Duncan with the most double-doubles in a season. When you have Caleb Love who can Caleb Love is kind of Caleb Love and RJ Davis kind of are perfect couple as far as they both can score. They both are really good ball handlers. It's just you don't want Caleb Love being a decision maker. You don't want Caleb Love being a decision maker because most of his decisions are always score, because that's just his mentality. RJ Davis, while he isn't the best scorer or while he's not the same level of scorer that, Caleb Love is, he's a better distributor. He's a better person that can control the offense. And then, of course, you have Brady Manick, who is incredible from three, who was a transfer from Oklahoma. You have Armando Bacot, and you have Leaky Black, who doesn't look to score at all. He just dominates defensively. I think North Carolina is playing the best basketball they played all season, clearly, and I think that they're playing the best right now. And, of course, the St. Peter's game when they won by 20. So, again, Duke versus North Carolina, this is the first time in the historic rivalry that both teams will be seeing each other in the tournament. The last time they played clearly was Coach K's last home game, and North Carolina came out on top. I can see. So, how can Duke win? Let me do this first. How can Duke win? Duke can win by controlling the tempo of the game, coming defensively, because you have, when you have Roach, who, their guard, when you have AJ, you're going to need to control the tempo. You're going to need to slow down Caleb Love. You're going to need to slow down RJ Davis, and you're going to need to match. You're going to need to you need to get Amano Baycock off the board. If you can get Amano Baycock off the boards, which he's a walking double at this point, you have and try to get him into foul trouble. You have a recipe to win. Also, while more than likely they're going to put Leaky Black on Banchero, Leaky Black is 6'7", Banchero's like 6'10". So it's like you're going to need to Banchero clearly is going to be a lottery pick in the draft. You're going to need to win that battle. But this is an historic. This is the first time ever, again, in this historic rivalry, in my opinion, the best rivalry in sports. So Duke is going to have to control the tempo, and they're going to have, especially defensively, and they're going to have to get Amano Baycock into, because Duke is a springy team, but they don't really have a player that can match, Amano Baycock. So going to get him into foul trouble. North Carolina side, how they can win. Caleb Love's going to have to continue his hot streak. Also, Amano Baycock's going to have to stay out of foul trouble, because what North Carolina does is they like to play about a 5 or 6 man rotation. One, Amano Baycock comes off the floor. They don't really have a second big that can kind of, steady the ship. And that's one thing that North Carolina's always had. They've always had at least two bigs, Hicks and Kennedy Meeks. They had Bryce Love and Kennedy Meeks. They've always been dominant with the bigs. Outside of Amano Baycock, while yes, you have Brady Manning, he's more of a stretch. He's not really a big that's gonna just, he's gonna work down low. No, he's a stretch. He shoots almost like 45 or 50% from the 3-point line. And he's not the best defender, but he will light it up from offense. So Amando Baycock needs to stay out of foul trouble. And I think that if North Carolina can control the pace, because what North Carolina wants to do is, of course, go back and forth. That's kind of what Duke wants to do as well, but North Carolina kind of plays it at a better pace, especially at how they've been playing this point of the season. That's the keys to winning. Now, of course, I'm going to put my bias in it. I'm going to say North Carolina wins this. While yes, I think that, I'm not going to say there's more motivation for Duke, because you're trying to make it to the national championship, so there's motivation everywhere. But I do think that North Carolina is playing their best basketball. And again, as a North Carolina fan, I didn't see how they were going to beat Baylor, even though Baylor did, a couple of their players were injured. Baylor is a better team, especially offensively. So was UCLA, better offensive team than Duke. I just feel if North Carolina comes with a defensive mindset, they can win. And I think that they're going to win. I think North Carolina, which is the lowest seed remaining, of course, because they're the 8th seed, I think North Carolina makes the national championship. And as to me, as a fan, that's still crazy to say, seeing how this season went, some of the big losses that North Carolina experienced, and being in a I think arguably the toughest region, which was the East, because you had Baylor, you had Kentucky, you had UCLA, you had Purdue, and if you look, Baylor has players that's going to the league. Kentucky clearly has players that's going to the league. Purdue has a player in Ivy that's probably going in the top 3. So I just, I thought it was going to be tough, but North Carolina's here. So I have North Carolina beating Duke in a very close one, probably 75 to 71. I think it's going to be a close game. So That's what I have for North Carolina and Duke. And again, shouts out to North Carolina for making it to the Final Four. Shouts out to Duke for making it to the Final Four. Shouts out to Coach K, Herbert Davis. Like I said, African American coach, first year he did play for North Carolina back then. Won a national championship with North Carolina, I believe, actually, when he was a player. But shouts out to them. Let me go over to the other side, other region, or other Final Four, which is Villanova and Kansas. Now, when I tell you, excuse me, when I tell you that I've never seen a team, that's a lie. The way that Baylor turned up on North Carolina when they lost Brady Manick and Caleb Love is the same exact way I saw Kansas turn up on Miami in that second half. Miami had all the momentum going into halftime. And when I tell you that it took about 2 to 3 minutes to realize, oh yeah, it's over with. And that good Lord, Kansas. Now Kansas is the only remaining number 1 seed in the tournament, and they played like it, man. They played like it. Now Kansas has some players, man. You have Oche Abaji, who is of course their leader and their senior. You have Christian Braun, who's been good. They have a squad, man. And the thing about Kansas is they don't really, at least this point in the tournament, they don't really have a weakness because they can beat you offensively, they can beat you defensively, they can boggle down. The thing that kind of didn't merit Miami in, and the biggest reason why I didn't think Miami was going to win is because they don't really have a big, and Kansas has a big that more than likely could get drafted. Yeah. It's when you don't have a big to go against David McCormick, it's gonna be a long day for you, a very, very long day. Now, and Lightfoot, who's a forward, but he's good too. So Kansas has been, Bill Self. I think that North Carolina and Kansas kind of go back and forth as the most winningest franchises in college basketball. I think that Kansas they had a tough road. They had to go against Providence, who's number 4. They had to go against Creighton. Every game outside of the Miami game's kind of been close, but there's a reason why Kansas is number 1, especially in the Midwest region. Like they have been good, and they had a tough region going against Auburn. I mean, people that didn't. I had Auburn or Arizona going to the national championship and winning it. Clearly, that didn't work. So, Kansas has been dominant, man. And on the Villanova side, and Villanova, first of all, shouts out to Villanova. Now, I know that's crazy for me to say, seeing as though the history that Villanova and North Carolina has, especially in the in the national championship. But shouts out to Villanova, and I say shouts out because I am a Maryland native. I've lived in Maryland and DC my entire life until this point. So, Villanova, which Jay Wright has been very open about, does most of its recruiting in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And most of their players is, as you can see, from Virginia. Now, of course, there's some people, but either from Jersey to Philly, you have, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Pennsylvania. They have one from Louisiana, Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, Delaware. So shouts out to that, man. But the biggest reason, man, and it sucks. Injuries suck. Now, you kind of saw that injuries do play a part clearly in sports in general, but clearly this part of or this point of the season. And you saw that with Houston. So when Houston played, who did they play? It was Duke. When Houston played Duke, Houston, now again, shouts out to Houston, man. Houston got a lot farther than I thought. Was it Duke? Houston. Was it Duke? No, it was Villanova. I'm sorry. But you saw that with Houston. Houston was out their leading scorer. Now, usually that you feel the effect either sooner or later, of course. And again, shouts out to Houston for making it all the way to the Elite Eight, but you saw Houston. Injuries are going to catch up no matter if you try to prevent it or not, injuries are going to catch up to you. Whether it's going to derail something or whatever, it's going to catch up. And it caught up to Houston. Houston, they were without their best scorer. And in the Elite Eight, they could not hit the side of a barn with a water hose, yo. I think they went like 1 for 20 from the 3-point line. Like, and I say all that to say Villanova lost a big piece. They lost Justin Moore. Now, Justin Moore is not a starter, but Villanova, kind of like North Carolina, plays a very tight rotation. I have about a rotation of about 5 or 6 at this point. And Justin Moore, I think, plays like 75% of, out of all the bench plays, he plays like 75% of the minutes. And that's a huge loss. And now, yes, you have Colin Giuseppe, who is incredible. He's been on a tear. You have Caleb Daniels, who's been good. But losing Justin Moore, in my opinion, was huge. Jermaine Samuels has been great as well. Jermaine Samuels, I think, is like he's been going crazy. But losing Justin Moore, especially when we talk about defensively, and even if you look at the Houston game, he had some really big shots. Now I think he tore his ACL or tore his Achilles. So I definitely hope for a speedy recovery. But I think losing Justin Moore is the difference between winning or losing for Villanova, in my opinion. Even though they still have some really good players, and shouts out to the players that are still remaining. I just think losing Justin Moore against Houston is different from losing Justin Moore against losing Justin Moore and having to face the number one team or the only remaining number one seed, especially a number one seed who caught fire the second half of their last game against Miami. So I have a Maryland and I have a UNC Kansas national championship only because of Justin Moore's injury. I think if Justin Moore was there, it would be a great. I still think it's going to be a good game, but I would have Villanova winning, honestly, in my opinion, if Justin Moore was there, because of how important he is and his defense. You can put him on Obagi, but without it, I have Kansas winning that one. So I have North Carolina and Kansas making it to the national championship. So who do you guys think is going to make the national championship? Let me know. Out of course, the Final Four. What are you guys looking forward to? Let me know. Let's go over to the women's side, which is actually, first of all, shouts out to UConn and NC State. Probably had the best game. Yeah, that was probably the best game. Maybe I would rival that game. No. I think that NC State and UConn probably had the best game in March, as far as both tournaments, both men's and women's tournament. UConn, of course, beating NC State 91-87. It was an incredible game. It went to double overtime. NC State hit some clutch buckets, man. Paige Beckert, Uh, she I think she had like 28, 29 points. Azzi Fudd had like 19. Shouts out Maryland or DC product. It's now, damn. So I'll say my gripe. I don't understand. Now, nobody has been able to tell me why. So I'm just gonna remain as I don't understand. I don't understand how you can have a region, and in said region, a team can have home court advantage, and the team that has home court advantage is not the number one overall seed. So what I'm saying is UConn plays in the Bridgeport region. Now, while UConn does not originally play in Bridgeport, their arena is probably about 45 minutes to an hour from Bridgeport, maybe hour and a half, which is pretty much a home game. North Carolina is nowhere close to Connecticut. So why is it that, and don't get me wrong, do I think that changed the outcome? Do I think that UConn would not have won? No, but I do think that it, let me say no, possibly, because there's difference between having home court advantage and not. That's why it's called home court advantage. So how is it that NC State, who earned the number one overall spot, now in the Elite Eight have to play pretty much an away game? Yes, they have the white jerseys, which signals home just due to the fact that they have a better, they have a higher seed ranking, but you're pretty much playing an away game, and it felt like it. Now, again, both teams played incredible, and I'm not taking anything away from UConn. I'm just shedding light on the fact. Like, if you look, Baylor had home games. Now Baylor did lose home games, but South Carolina had home games. I don't know, man. It's just weird in my opinion. But it is what it is. Shouts out to UConn for making it to the Final Four. They'll be going up against Stanford. And Stanford, man, and I say this again, shouts out to Takira Carter, because I knew Stanford was good. And, of course, the number one seed in the Spokane region. I knew they were good, but I just didn't think Stanford right now looks better than they did last year. And last year, for people that don't remember, they won the national championship. Stanford is playing incredible. Their defense man. Stanford is playing great. So, and I didn't really see anybody beating them from their region. However, I didn't think that Stanford was going to look this good, and they've been incredible. So the question is, can UConn, Stanford, in my opinion, is a better team than NC State. And NC State is incredible. But Stanford, they do things very methodically. Like, they cut perfectly. They hit the open shot. They're great. They're great, especially on the offensive rebound, on the defensive rebound. They're great at the free throw line. They're just, while NC State maybe shoots a better 3-point shot, Stanford, in my opinion, does everything just a tad bit better than NC State. And UConn, it took an incredible second half from Azzi Fudd and from Paige Beckard to get them a double overtime win. That's tough. And one thing that was glaring in the UConn and NC State game was free throw shooting. Make your free throws. Especially the first half of the game, UConn I think they were like 1-8 at one point. Like, they couldn't hit the free throw to save their life. And in the I think second overtime, young lady from NC State had an opportunity to tie the game up because she got fouled shooting 3. She missed one. So free throws are important. Yeah, Stanford is incredible. I just have Stanford going to the national championship. I think that they're going to have an answer for Paige Beckard. They're going to have an answer for Azzi Fudd. They're going to have an answer for UConn does an incredible job crashing the boards. I just think Stanford is playing at an incredible level, and as well as UConn, but Stanford's playing at an incredible level right now. I mean, they beat Kansas, they beat Maryland, they handily too. Maryland, they beat Texas pretty handily, even though it was a 9-point game. Texas pretty much had to come back at the end. I have Stanford going to the national championship over UConn, even though UConn has played great too. I mean, UConn destroyed Mercer. Clearly, they beat UCF. They beat Indiana. They destroyed Indiana. Good Lord Almighty. So, yeah, man. Shouts out to UConn for making it. Shouts out to Stanford for making it. I have Stanford on this side going to the national championship. And on the other side, you have number 1 South Carolina against number 1 Louisville. Oh, I did fail to mention that UConn was the only 2 seed to make it to the Final Four. Everyone else was 1 seeds, meaning that NC State was the only number 1 seed to fail to make it. First of all, let me apologize to Louisville, man. I had Louisville. If you look back on the preview that I did with Jasmine Brown, with Tykera Carter, with my man Carl, I didn't think that Louisville was good enough to make it out of this round or make it out of this region. I mean, to me, they had the hardest region by far. You had Baylor, you had Tennessee, you had Michigan. They had the toughest road, in my opinion, by far. And while I knew Louisville was good, especially shooting the 3, as they have some really tall players, I just didn't think that they could keep up with the scoring, especially when we talk about Baylor, or the physicality, especially when we talk about teams like Baylor or Michigan or Tennessee. And I was wrong. They beat Gonzaga. They destroyed Tennessee. They beat pretty handily Michigan. They did what they had to do. And while I do think Baylor losing to South Dakota was huge, and I think if they would have seen Baylor, they possibly would have lost to Baylor. I guess we'll never know. So, shouts out to Louisville, man. And South Carolina, which was the overall number 1 overall seed. South Carolina has been winning with their defense. They've been winning with their defense the entire time. Beating Howard, beating Miami, beating North Carolina. They have only scored over 70 points twice in the first round and against Creighton. They've been beating people, offensively. I mean, defensively. Aaliyah Boston's been great. Henderson's been great. Cook has been great. As far as defensively, I think that defensively they're going to remain who they are, and who they are is a dominant defensive team. The question is their defense going to be able to slow down Louisville? And if it's not going to be able to slow down Louisville, can South Carolina, which we have not seen all tournament, can their offense keep them in games? Because the offense hasn't had to keep them in games in this entire tournament. Like I said, I just feel with Aaliyah Boston, who has pretty much played the best basketball of the tournament, I just think their defense, which has carried them to the Final Four, I think it's going to carry them to the national championship. Because Louisville, and that's no disrespect to Louisville, it's just South Carolina has been great offensively or defensively. And while Louisville has been great offensively, I just think that South Carolina has been better defensively. So I have South Carolina and Stanford making it to the national championship. Out of the Final Four, I just think that they've played the best out of all the teams remaining. And while yes, South Carolina has struggled offensively, defensively they've been the best team in my opinion by a wide margin. And Stanford, in my opinion, has just been methodical in everything they do. So I have Stanford and South Carolina making it to the national championship. So. again, on the men's side, on the women's side, let me know what you think. How do you feel about Stanford, and how do you feel about my picks, which is Stanford and South Carolina making it to the national championship? Who do you think is going to win? On the men's side, how do you feel about Duke, North Carolina? That's huge to me, of course. How do you feel about Kansas and Villanova? Do you think that losing Justin Moore do you think that Villanova will be able to overcome it? Let me know. So let's move forward. In some NFL news, NFL changed. They are changing the overtime rule. Which should have been happened. Of course, it took one of the greatest games that we've ever seen, which was last year. The playoffs, Kansas City Chiefs against Buffalo Bills. And, of course, Kansas City Chiefs. All right, so the new rule in overtime is, of course, both teams have a chance to possess the ball. And if you score on the opening possession as a touchdown, now the other team still gets an opportunity. If both teams don't score, it's the next score wins. Which that's how it should be. To me, that's fair. And it took, of course, the Chiefs and Bills game to do it, to finally. The owners, people like to hold on to tradition, especially when we talk about some NFL things, especially when we talk about baseball. They like to hold on to tradition. So there was a lot of people apparently that was split about should we change it because that's how it is. That's how it's been. But this rule's been happening. This rule should have happened. You know what I mean? Like there should be no reason why both teams don't have an opportunity. You shouldn't play a great game for 48 minutes, and then you dictate or you leave it to a coin toss pretty much. So nah, but it should have been happened. So shouts out to the league for finally getting it right. I think this should have been happened, but I'm glad that it happened. And I think moving forward, it's a great look. So shouts out to the league, and I think that's how it should have been. So also in the NFL, there have been improvements, I guess you can say, to the quote-unquote Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule has been, for the longest, that teams have to interview a minority for whatever opening is available, whether that's GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, whatever. Like a minority has to be interviewed. Doesn't mean they have to be hired. Has to be interviewed. Now, I have been hella critical on the Rooney Rule. Hella critical. I'm always the one saying, people will find a loophole in anything if they want to. Like, that's how it is. And there are hella loopholes in the Rooney Rule. I have been very critical. But I will come on here and, I guess, champion the league for this recent change. Now, the recent change in the Rooney Rule is now the NFL says teams have to hire a minority offensive coach. They have to. There's a difference between, they have to hire. There's a difference between you have to interview compared to you have to hire. Now they have to hire a minority offensive head coach, as well as, and that includes, like, now the Rooney Rule has expanded to women. I think that's huge, man. Just because there's no women in the NFL doesn't mean that women don't know football, and I think that's huge. Now, the Rooney Rules, you don't have to hire a woman, but you have to get them in the room, and I think that's the most important thing. I still don't like the verbiage as far as you have to interview women in this and the third, but because if you want to be real, man, put a woman on the sideline. Again, there's a lot of women that I know that for sure know more football than me, and I have a freaking sports podcast. So, but I do like the fact that, the game is going in an offensive, we know offense is pretty much king at this point in the NFL. And you want minority, whether that's African American, whether that's Hispanic, whether that's Asian, whether that's a woman, you want representation at the highest level. While yes, we're still trying to creep our way up to the head coaching spot. Small victories, and I think this is a big victory actually. Now that they have to hire an offensive head coach. Now, talking to some NFL players, there are already most of the teams already have an offensive. It doesn't a minority offensive coach. Doesn't have to be an offensive coordinator. It can be It can be a running back coach. It could be a quarterback coach. It could be a tight ends coach. You just have to hire a minority offensive coach. And from a lot of people that I talk to that play in the NFL or work with that play in the NFL have said, I don't think I've ever been on a team that didn't have a black coach, but now that it's or black offensive head coach, but now it's mandatory, and I like that. So shouts out to the Rooney Rule, man. Small victories. Still need to fix this whole fix the whole head coaching thing, but small victories, man. Small victories. Man, shouts out to Triple H, man. Now, I know I'm venturing over to the wrestling side. I don't really talk about wrestling. I definitely don't watch wrestling right now. But I used to watch wrestling, man. Wrestling used to be huge in my life, man. I used to be a big Rock, Stone Cold. I even go a little closer to my age. Jeff Hardy was big, doing the dances and everything. But shouts out to Triple H. So Triple H officially announces, I think last week, that he retires from wrestling. Now, first and foremost, I was shocked as hell that he's even still wrestling. Like, I said, what the hell? Like Triple H, the D-Generation X, like the dude that got me in so much trouble because I was saying suck it to everyone, not knowing what it meant. That man's still wrestling at this. I was shocked. But yeah, he's retiring from wrestling due to health concerns and health reasons. Said it just wasn't conducive for his health anymore. And, again, shouts out to Triple H for being able to walk out of a sport instead of being carried out of a sport. Now, I think he'll still be a part of WWE as far as, like, the front office and stuff. But as far as, like, wrestling in the ring, yeah, I think he retired from it. Triple H, again, will go down as one of the greatest wrestlers ever. He's on that list for me. The Rock, Stone Cold, Jeff Hardy, Triple H, Undertaker, Kane, Shawn Michaels, again, with the D-Generation X. That was my childhood. And, I remember matches. I remember Triple H going against Undertaker at WrestleMania. I remember Triple H winning in the Royal Rumble. Like, I remember all of it. I remember him winning the WWE Championship. I remember him. I think it was Triple H, Jeff Hardy, and John Cena for the WWE Championship. And I think I know that was when Jeff Hardy won. But that was one of the best matches I've ever seen. I remember Triple H, doing the Triple H had kids like myself being at a bus stop, spitting freaking water up in the air and just like flexing with no muscles. That's what Triple H had me doing. Like, it's all about the game. I was a big wrestling fan back in the day, man. So, it's again, now I'm not a wrestling fan now. I ain't watched it in God knows how long. But shouts out to Triple H, not only for being able to retire, but retiring with the right sense of mind, because we know the grueling lifestyle that wrestlers have, and being able to walk out, not getting carried out. So shouts out to Triple H, man. Yeah, man, shouts out to you, and I wish nothing but the best for his retirement. He definitely helped me in my childhood back in the day. So shouts out, bro. Also, speaking of last rides at this point, Albert Pujols, man. Albert Pujols, who will go down as one of the greatest baseball players ever. He pretty much said this is his last year. He signed a contract or signed a 1-year deal with the St. Louis Cardinals, which of course, for people that don't know, that's where he pretty much saw most of his success. From 2001 to 2011, he went back there. He also then went to the Angels and then the Dodgers. But yeah, man, Albert Pujols will go down. I mean, listen to this. Albert Pujols' career: 10-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, 3-time NL MVP, Rookie of the Year, NL Rookie of the Year, NLCS MVP, 2-time Golden Glove Awards, 5-time Fielding Bible Award, 6-time Silver Slugger Award, 2-time NL Hank Aaron Award, NL batting home run leader, 2-time NL batting home run leader. He was a 1-time NL RBI leader and an NL batting champion in 2003. Albert Pujols will go down as one of the greatest baseball first basemen to ever play. And he's one of the most beloved players ever, honestly. I don't really know many people that have a problem with Albert Pujols. First ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion, for sure. He's the 4th player with 3,000 hits and 600 home runs, joining Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Alex Rodriguez. Oh, and he's the oldest current player to do it. So, yeah, man, shouts out to Albert Pujols. I don't know going to St. Louis, I don't think they'll win, especially with seeing what the Dodgers did this offseason with Freddie Freeman. And of course, I don't see them winning, but I do like the fact that, again, Albert Pujols was able to leave after this season, whether you win or not, he's able to go out on top, go out as one of the greatest first basemen to ever play. So shouts out to Robert Pujols. Yeah, man, definitely well deserved. So, and lastly, before we go, I'm about to sound crazy, but let's have this conversation. How am I going to address this? I'll address it. So Sharif ONeil, it's been announced that he will be entering his name into the transfer portal. For people that's keeping score, that is the second time. He was originally with UCLA, then he went to LSU, the same school that his father, Shaquille O'Neal, went to. Now I'll be going to somewhere different. Now, my problem is not with Sharif ONeil. My problem is not with the transfer portal itself. My problem is people have to be, some players need to be realistic. Now, again, I know that Sharif is for people that's watching YouTube, Sharif is on the screen right now. But this is not targeted towards Sharif as much as it's targeted to a lot of players that put their name into the transfer portal. I understand that sometimes coaches lie to get you into an organization or get you to a school. I understand that sometimes, transferring might be the best thing for you, i.e., look at Walker Kessler. Transferred from from UNC to Auburn, and has one of the most statistically dominant seasons we've seen. Hell, as well as Jabari Smith going from Georgia to Auburn, and more than likely will be a top pick in the league or in the draft. So I get that. The problem is, though, there's not a lot of Walker Kesslers. There's not a lot of Jabari Smiths. You have to be real with yourself, and you have to understand, is it just the fact that you're not in the right situation? Or are you just not that good? Now, there's no disrespect to anybody. If you're good enough to play college basketball, you're good enough to play college basketball. But look at players like Seventh Wood, man, who keeps bouncing who kept bouncing from team to team to team and never was able to stuck. Maybe it's just you. People, in my opinion, people think that, or some athletes think that just because you hit transfer portal means it's just going to be sweet moving forward. It's not. Just because you go from, look, almost all of South Carolina, the Gamecocks, almost the men's side, almost their entire team is in the transfer portal. Actually, I think maybe their entire team. Now, do you think like the 12th man on that team is gonna make a huge difference? I just think you have to be real with yourself, man. Sometimes it's not there. Now, sometimes it is the organization. Sometimes it is the school, the coach. Maybe the relationship is just fractured. I don't know. But sometimes you have to look at yourself. Like now I'm gonna center it and target it to Sharif. First of all, Sharif overcame, health concern or health situations that a lot of people wouldn't. So shouts out to him with that and overcoming that. But you have to look. But the man averages like 3 points a game. Now that could be, the coaching. I don't know. But you average like 3 points a game, and you didn't really do much at UCLA either. So you think the third school is gonna work? I don't know. Some players just need to be real with themselves. And again, I'm not saying it's Sharif. Sharif can go and have an incredible season next year. I hope he does. I hope everybody does that. Enter the transfer portal. But the realization is everybody will not. So, and I looked up because I was wondering, and this kind of goes back to, I was wondering the other day, where is Seventh Wood? Seventh Wood transferred, went to UNC, didn't really do much there. And I was like, he didn't win national championship, I think. But where is Seventh Wood now? He's at Morgan State doing nothing. So, I'm just saying, you got to be real with yourself. And there you have it, man. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I appreciate you guys. Again, shouts out to my man Drew for the Voorhees crew neck. I also have a Voorhees sweater or you have a hoodie. I appreciate you. I love them. This joint is tough, especially seeing as though I played college basketball and have the tiger as a logo hoop, and that's pretty cool. So shouts out to you, man. Please subscribe to whoever you're listening. Again, please subscribe to whoever you're watching. It definitely means a lot. And until next time, much love.